You've stocked up, the bags are packed, flashlights, tools, food, supplies, everything you thought you'd need. You've run the checklists, watched the tutorials, and told yourself, I'm ready. But then it happens. The grid goes down, your phone dies, the streets are silent, no power, no stores, and the world outside your door. It doesn't feel safe anymore. You reach for your emergency supplies, the ones you trusted to carry you through, and right then, it all starts falling apart. The fire starter won't catch, the water purifier clogs, the flashlight gives up after 2 hours, and that so-called tactical tool barely holds together. You're now in a real emergency, and the gear you thought would protect you, it's failing. This is the part no one talks about. A lot of survival products aren't made for survival. They're made to sell. Cheap, flashy, and full of promises they can't keep when it actually counts. Today, we're exposing 9 survival products that too many people rely on, and absolutely shouldn't, because when a crisis hits, the only thing worse than having nothing is thinking you're prepared when you're not. If you're serious about building a survival kit that actually works when things fall apart, hit subscribe now. We cut through the hype and show you what really holds up in a real collapse. Number 1. Regular plastic water bottles. They're in every home, sitting in pantries, packed into bug-out bags, stacked in closets. Regular plastic water bottles, the kind you get by the case from any grocery store, feel like a no-brainer for survival. Cheap, convenient, and seemingly practical. But here's the harsh truth. These bottles are not built for real emergencies, and depending on them in a true crisis could leave you dehydrated, frustrated, or even sick. First, they're fragile. The thin plastic is designed to be disposable, not durable. Toss one into a pack and it crumples. Expose it to heat and it warps. Leave it in freezing temps and it cracks. In a bug-out scenario or during transport, these bottles are liabilities, not assets. Second, they're not reusable, at least not safely. Once opened, the bottle's structural integrity drops fast. Reusing them to refill water from other sources? That's a problem. Most aren't designed to withstand boiling or even basic sterilization. You can't clean them thoroughly, and bacteria builds up quickly. In a real collapse, where sanitation is already tough, reusing dirty plastic could make you sick fast. Third, the water inside has a shelf life. Yes, water itself doesn't expire, but the plastic does. Over time, it leaches chemicals, especially when stored in warm places like garages or car trunks. That clean water ends up tasting like plastic soup and may be contaminated after long storage. Even the bottle caps are weak points. They leak, they loosen with vibration or time, and in a dusty, high-movement crisis, that's a disaster. Worst of all, people think they're covered because they have a few cases stacked in a closet, but a standard 16.9 Oz bottle only gives you half a liter. That's barely enough for one person for half a day. Multiply that by days, family members, pets, and you're suddenly nowhere near ready. A smarter move? Use thick, BPA-free water containers made for long-term storage. 1-gallon jugs, 5-gallon stackables, or even collapsible water cubes that are rugged, reusable, and easier to carry. And pair those with purification tabs, filters, or boiling kits so you're not stuck rationing pre-bottled water that can't be replaced. Because in a real emergency, what you drink out of matters as much as what you drink. And if your survival plan starts with thin plastic, you're already running dry. Number 2, off-the-shelf coffee mugs or to-go cups. Everyone has them. Ceramic mugs in the kitchen, plastic to-go cups in the car, and those sleek, branded tumblers that promise to keep drinks hot or cold for hours. For daily life, sure they work, but in a real survival scenario, trusting these to hold your critical fluids is a bad gamble. Here's why they fail when it really matters. First, the materials. Most store-bought coffee mugs are ceramic. Looks nice. Hold your morning brew, but drop it once on a hard surface and it's shattered. No second chance. In a survival situation, when you're constantly moving, setting up in rough environments, or working in the cold, brittle ceramic is a huge risk. You won't get another mug, and losing your only container for hot liquids can be a serious blow. Then you've got the to-go style plastic or metal cups. They're often lined with cheap insulation or painted coatings that degrade quickly under heat or repeated use. They may work at the office or on your commute, but try boiling water in one. Most will warp, leak, or even release toxic fumes. In other words, they're not built for direct heat or rugged use. And don't forget the lids. That fancy-looking cap? It's usually the first thing to fail. Threads strip, seals wear out, and locking mechanisms snap. Once that lid is gone, your cup is just a spill waiting to happen. In a cold environment, that spill means lost heat. In a dirty one, it means contamination. And here's the biggest trap. People assume that because a cup can keep things hot for a few hours, it must be survival grade. But what they don't realize is survival doesn't happen in hours. It happens in days, weeks. Your Your gear has to hold up under constant stress. That Starbucks tumbler in your cabinet, it's not built for collapse, it's built for style. A better alternative? Invest in a stainless steel, single-wall metal cup, the kind you can put directly over fire, use for boiling, and clean thoroughly in the field. It won't crack, it won't warp, and it'll serve as both your drinking cup and emergency cooking tool. Because in a real crisis, your mug doesn't just need to carry coffee, it might need to carry survival. Number 3, basic scissors, everyday household type. You've probably got a few pairs in a drawer. Cheap plastic-handled scissors from Walmart, school supplies, or the office. They cut paper, maybe some tape, and occasionally open a package. But in a real-world survival scenario, trusting these to hold up under pressure, that's a serious mistake. Here's why. First, the materials. Most everyday scissors are made with soft steel blades and plastic rivets. They're fine for cutting envelopes, but put them to use on paracord, clothing, or anything with grit and density, and you'll quickly discover they dull fast. Once the blades lose that edge, they don't cut, they tear. And that's dangerous when you're trying to dress a wound, repair gear, or prep materials in a hurry. Then there's the grip. Cheap plastic handles are designed for short bursts of casual use, not sustained work. In cold weather, with wet hands or gloves, those smooth grips turn slick, and the tension in your hand increases. It only takes one slip for a mishap. And in survival, a hand injury isn't just inconvenient, it's potentially life-threatening. And let's not forget the hinge, often the weakest link. A lot of household scissors use a simple plastic pin or metal rivet to hold both blades together. Under stress, this point loosens, separates, or outright snaps. Once that happens, the tool is done. You're not fixing it in the field. Also, these scissors are simply not multifunctional. You might think of them as versatile, but they fail at nearly every heavy-duty task. Cutting denim, rope, bandages, zip ties, plastic containers, all a struggle. Try cutting duct tape or survival wrap. You'll gum up the blades instantly. Now think about this. In a real crisis, scissors might be your only precision cutting tool. Whether it's trimming cloth for wounds, opening sealed food, shaving tinder, or even modifying clothing, they need to perform under pressure. Flimsy office scissors just won't cut it, literally. Instead, go with trauma shears or heavy-duty utility scissors. Built with reinforced steel, designed to slice through seatbelts, leather, and thick fabrics, and often rust-resistant too. They're built for first responders, and they'll serve you 10 times better in a true collapse. Because when survival gets real, your tools can't be good enough for the office. They have to be built to survive the field. Number 4, disposable paper towels. In day-to-day life, paper towels feel like a necessity. You wipe spills, dry hands, clean surfaces, and they're everywhere. Kitchen counters, glove boxes, emergency kits. But in a real collapse scenario, these disposable rolls quickly go from helpful to a major liability. Here's why. First, let's talk about durability. Paper towels are built to break down. That's part of the point. Single use, easy discard. But when you're dealing with messy situations in the field, mud, blood, oil, food prep, wet surfaces, these things fall apart fast. One wipe and they shred. Wet one? It tears in half before you've cleaned anything. In a world without running water or unlimited supplies, that kind of fragility just doesn't cut it. Then there's the issue of waste. In a crisis, you're trying to minimize what you consume and maximize what lasts. Paper towels are a one-and-done item. Use it once and it's garbage. Multiply that over a week of cooking, cleaning, and basic hygiene, and you've created a pile of used paper that you now have to store, burn, or bury. That's not just inconvenient, it's a sanitation problem waiting to happen. And what about space? A single roll takes up way more room than most people think. If you try to pack multiple rolls into a bug-out bag, you're sacrificing valuable space for a product that's weak, bulky, and short-lived. You might get a few wipes out of it before it's done, and now you've got nothing. People assume that paper towels are better than nothing, but that's not the right mindset in survival. You need tools and supplies that do more, last longer, and hold up under pressure. Instead, switch to reusable rags or microfiber cloths. One towel can be used dozens of times, rinsed, wrung out, and dried in the sun. Some even have antibacterial coatings. You save space, reduce waste, and get a tool that actually performs in wet or gritty conditions. Because when the grid goes down and your supplies are limited, you don't want to be stuck relying on a paper product that was never built for the real world. Number 5, patch kits for bikes, used as survival repair kits. It sounds smart at first. Toss a couple of bike patch kits into your emergency stash for quick fixes. They're small, cheap, and marketed as all-purpose repair tools. People assume if it can fix a tire tube, it can patch a tarp, seal a hole in gear, or even close up leaks in water containers. But that assumption? It's dangerous. Let's start with what bike patch kits are really made for. Thin rubber tubes, under low to moderate pressure, usually in controlled environments. They're not built for rough fabric, flexible plastic, plastic, high tension, or extreme weather. The adhesives in most of these kits aren't waterproof, temperature-resistant, or strong enough for anything outside of bicycle use. Try using one on a ripped backpack strap, a tear in your tent, or a hole in a water bladder, and you'll find out fast. The patch peels, slides, or comes loose the moment stress is applied. And if it's raining or cold, good luck. Adhesion drops dramatically in wet or freezing conditions. The patch simply won't bond right. Then there's the false confidence factor. People carry these kits thinking they're covered for all types of repairs, but the moment the product fails, they're out of options. No backup, no reinforcement, just exposed gear and a growing problem. In a real crisis, that small tear can lead to bigger losses: cold exposure, gear failure, even contamination if it involves water or food storage. Let's also talk about quantity. A typical bike patch kit includes just a few small patches, a single-use tube of glue, and maybe a small piece of sandpaper. That's not a repair system. That's a one-time fix at best. In a collapse, when you're constantly on the move, encountering rough terrain, and pushing your gear to the edge, you need something tougher, repeatable, and versatile. A smarter choice? Carry heavy-duty repair tape, like Gorilla Tape, sewing kits with waxed thread, and real fabric-reinforced patching materials designed for tarps, tents, or bags. These items weigh nearly the same but give you real options when gear breaks, because in survival, things will break. The question is, do you have tools that can actually fix them? Bike patch kits aren't built for that world. They're built for a flat tire, and that's not going to help when your shelter starts ripping in a storm. Number 6. Standard shower curtains, used as emergency shelter material. It's a common prepper hack. Grab a cheap plastic shower curtain, toss it in your bug-out bag, and you've got an instant tarp, rain barrier, or emergency shelter liner. It's light, compact, and feels like a clever solution. But when it's time to actually use it, that's when the problems start. Let's get real. Standard shower curtains are made for bathrooms, not survival. They're designed to hang still, indoors, under gentle conditions. Put them in the wild, wind, rain, cold, sun, and they start falling apart fast. First, the material. Most are made from thin PVC or vinyl, which tears with even light pressure. Try stretching it between trees or anchoring it with rope. The grommets tear, the plastic rips. One gust of wind, and your entire makeshift shelter is shredded. Not exactly confidence-inspiring during a downpour or cold night. Next, they're not breathable. That might sound fine until you try using one as a tent or ground cover. Moisture builds up inside. Condensation forms. If you're sleeping under or on it, you wake up damp, and in cold weather, that can lead to serious hypothermia risks. And don't forget, they melt easily. Put one near a fire, hot coals, or even under strong sunlight for too long, and it warps or breaks down. That means no cooking near it, no using it as a heat reflector, and no real durability after repeated use. People pack them thinking, hey, it's better than nothing. But in reality, it might be worse than nothing. It gives a false sense of security. You think you're prepared, but when the elements come crashing in, you've got a fragile sheet of plastic between you and the storm. Instead, go with a real tarp, polyethylene or canvas, with reinforced edges and grommets. Even a space blanket tarp combo outperforms a shower curtain by miles. These materials are made to hold up, handle wind, and provide real coverage when you need it. Because when you're trying to stay alive, you don't need clever hacks. You need gear that works. Number 7. Cheap plastic storage containers, used for emergency food or supply storage. You see them everywhere. Big, clear bins stacked in garages, small snap lid containers packed with dry rice, old Tupperware filled with batteries or bandages. Cheap plastic storage containers feel like a prepper's dream. Easy to find, stackable, and budget-friendly. But in a real crisis, they're one of the most dangerous forms of false security you can rely on. First, they're not airtight. Most of these containers, especially the budget brands, aren't designed to seal out moisture, dust, or pests. Over time, even a slow air leak means rising humidity inside. That means mold in your food, corrosion on your gear, and spoiled supplies when you need them most. It only takes a small crack in a seal to ruin what you've been storing for months. Then there's the structural integrity. Cheap plastics warp under pressure or heat. Stack a few heavy bins on top of each other for long-term storage, and the bottom one starts collapsing. Leave them in a hot garage or storage shed. They deform. The lids start to curl, and soon they won't close properly at all. And pests, rats, mice, bugs, they love these containers. Once the scent of food leaks out, it's game on. And here's the kicker. Rodents can chew through low-grade plastic with ease. ease. You'll go to check your supplies and find shredded corners, chewed open lids, and droppings inside. At that point, the whole batch is contaminated. Even for non-food supplies like medicine, clothing, or hygiene items, these containers are unreliable. They trap moisture if stored improperly. And once that gets inside, you're dealing with moldy socks, rusted tools, and ruined first aid gear. Most people use these containers because they're cheap, not because they're right. And that's the danger. They give the illusion of preparation. You feel like you've got everything safely stored, but when the real stress test hits, heat, time, movement, exposure, those bins fail silently until it's too late. The smarter move? Use food-grade, airtight buckets, vacuum-sealed bags, or heavy-duty waterproof containers with gaskets and locking lids. They cost more up front, but they actually protect your investment. Because in survival, it's not just about what you store, it's about whether it's still usable when you finally need it. Number 8. Basic ballpoint pens used for logging or navigation in a crisis. You probably don't think twice about it. A pen is a pen, right? You throw a few in your emergency kit, ballpoints, click tops, maybe something from your junk drawer, and figure you're covered for notes, maps, labels, and documentation. But when the grid goes down, the weather turns, and your survival depends on clarity. That cheap pen might leave you completely helpless. Here's why. First, standard ballpoint pens are incredibly sensitive to temperature. In cold weather, ink thickens or freezes entirely. In high heat, it runs thin or leaks. You try to write something down, a location, supply count, radio frequency, and the pen skips, stops, or bleeds. You're left with smudged, unreadable scribbles at the worst possible time. Second, they fail on non-standard surfaces. Paper in a survival scenario isn't always fresh or dry. You might need to write on damp notepads, maps, cardboard, even fabric. Ballpoint pens? Not built for that. The tip clogs, the ink won't transfer, and suddenly you can't even log coordinates or track supplies. And worst of all, they're unreliable under pressure. Literally. Drop it, sit on it, or leave it rolling around in a packed bag, and that cheap pen cracks, leaks, or just won't click anymore. In survival, where every tool must work when you reach for it, a broken pen is more than annoying. It's a liability. You may think, I'll remember what I need. You won't. In high-stress situations, memory slips. You need to write things down. The better move? Swap out your standard pens for a pressurized survival pen, the kind that writes in rain, snow, upside down, or on damp paper. Brands like Write in the Rain or Fisher Space Pen are built for the field, trusted by military and rescue teams worldwide. Because when it comes to critical notes in a crisis, what you write with matters just as much as what you write down. Number 9. Regular electrical tape, used for emergency repairs. You'll find it in almost every toolbox, a roll of basic black electrical tape. It's cheap, easy to wrap, and people assume it can do just about anything in a pinch. Repair a tarp, seal a hose, reinforce a handle, keep cords together. Sounds useful, right? But here's the cold truth. In a real emergency, electrical tape falls apart fast. Let's start with the material. Standard electrical tape is made from thin vinyl, great for insulating small electrical wires under ideal conditions. But outside of that purpose, it simply doesn't hold up. The adhesive weakens in both heat and cold. Leave it in a hot garage or cold car. It dries out or becomes gooey, either losing stick entirely or fusing into a useless mess. Use it to patch gear in wet or dirty conditions, and you'll notice it won't hold. The glue loses grip, the vinyl peels, and in high-stress scenarios, like when gear is under tension or exposed to rain, the tape simply lets go. Even when it sticks at first, it stretches. Wrap it around something tightly, and a few hours later, it's slack. That's a big deal when you're trying to reinforce a seal on a water container, secure a piece of clothing, or hold pressure on a damaged hose or bag. Electrical tape isn't designed for strength, and survival demands strength. Another overlooked issue is its lack of structural support. Unlike duct tape or reinforced repair tape, electrical tape is narrow, thin, and flimsy. You can't depend on it for any load-bearing applications or emergency patches on shelter, tools, or containers. People pack it thinking it's tape, but in a real-world crisis, it might as well be ribbon. And let's not forget longevity. Over time, electrical tape dries out, cracks, and leaves behind a sticky residue. If it's been in your kit for more than a year, especially in fluctuating temperatures, odds are it's already halfway useless before you even unroll it. The smarter move? Invest in heavy-duty duct tape, fabric repair tape, or even self-fusing silicone tape. These options are made for outdoor, high-stress, and multi-surface applications, exactly what you'll face in a collapse scenario. Because when gear breaks and your life depends on a quick fix, the last thing you want is a roll of tape that quits before you do. If there's one thing we've learned from real-world collapses, it's this. False confidence is deadly. You can have a shelf full of supplies, a garage stacked with bins, and a bag that looks ready for war, but if what's inside doesn't hold up when things go bad, it's worse than useless. It's dangerous. The truth is, most people won't find out their gear is garbage until it's too late, until the power's gone, until the rain's coming down, until their family is looking at them to fix it, and the tools they thought they could trust fail right in their hands. That's why this video matters, because survival isn't about having stuff. It's about having the right stuff. Gear that's been tested, gear that performs under pressure, gear that works when everything else doesn't. So if you saw anything in this list that's sitting in your kit right now, don't wait. Replace it, upgrade it, test it. Your future self will thank you. And if you want to avoid the hype, skip the gimmicks, and actually get ready for what's coming, subscribe right now. We don't panic. We expose the problems. We help you fix them before it's too late. Stick with us, and you won't just survive the next crisis. You'll be the one people look to when it all goes down.